It would be nice if I opened up my mic, right? Morning. There we go. That's a bit better. All right, so we have an incredible morning ahead of us. We've got Ben Karpinski joining us in just a short while. We'll also be joined by Jason Goliath and lots of other cool people who are going to be part of the show this morning. Hooray! Testing. Apparently we didn't have our comrades on either. All right. Well, as they say in the classics, better late than never. Here we are. We're live. It's Friday morning on cliffcentral.com. It's also not the worst day in Bitcoin. I mean, it's not the best, but we're at $30,000. So if you're watching that price, good for you. You're probably feeling a little bit better than you did this time last week, but not that much better. Also, the US stock markets seem to be making some kind of return to normality. We can only hope. Either way, I hope you're ready for a good weekend. There's lots to talk about. There's plenty of really interesting stuff happening in the news. And in case you missed yesterday's burning platform, I would advise you to go back and take a listen, because burning platform yesterday was on fire. Pumi was full of the usual beans, but we had an incredible discussion and a very interesting guest, Sally Moyang, who was on like a fire yesterday too. So lots of things to talk about. Okay, I do want to get to this. I had a really interesting conversation with an Uber driver on Saturday last week. In fact, it was 2 weeks ago now. This guy used to be in the police, and he ended up deciding that that wasn't for him because he got into, among other things, the firefight. He got shot in a massive cash in transit heist on Beyers Naudé. So he was telling me that this was the reason that his family eventually decided, hey, listen, dude, they sat him down and they said to him, you need to get out of this. It's not good for you. So he agreed. Reluctantly, being in the police was all he knew. So he said to them, look, I'll get out of this. What do you think I should do? They all said, whatever. He said, cool, I'll do Uber driving, which is exactly what he ended up doing. He told me something interesting, which I didn't realize. Like, apparently in the police, when you have resigned from the police and you've decided to move on to other things, the police actually can encourage you to keep your firearms. Now, this is especially relevant, I think, in respect of the discussion we had last week about gun violence in America and whether or not that situation applies in South Africa. The reason that they tell police to keep their firearms in South Africa, if you've been in the police, is because once you leave the police, according to him, there are probably a lot of people who don't like you and who want you dead. So it's better that you are armed than that you find yourself a victim, which I thought was really, really interesting. He said his dad was in the army, this Uber driver. He's probably 43, 44, and his dad is in his 70s. And he said his dad is now retired from the army, obviously, very much so, and lives near Mafikeng somewhere. And he said his dad has lots of guns. And it got me thinking, I mean, in South Africa, we have all these points of view about people who have guns. We have points of view about people who've been in the armed forces. We have a point of view about people who've been in the police. But it's interesting to me, like, you're going to have so many enemies when you've been in the police, especially if you've managed to convict somebody. You don't remember what term, what prison sentence they were given. And then they get out of prison and they come looking for you. Which I think is terrifying. I mean, can you imagine anything more horrifying than that? Anyway, this guy was telling me a lot of interesting stories. He's got 3 kids. And I love talking to Uber drivers. You really learn an enormous amount about places and things and jobs that you might not have thought about when you talk to these people. Being in the police is horrible. It's tough. It's mean. It's filled with very, very dangerous people. He said one of the reasons he left the police was because it's just absolutely impossible to stay in in the good books of the people at the top, which is pretty wild. I mean, especially if you can think just for a second about how that changes all the time. We got Becky Taylor 1 minute, then you've got this guy, and you got this police commissioner. I mean, it's really, really quite wild. So EP47 says in the comments, poisoning colleagues left, right, and center. Generals face a lot of stress. Hey, listen, I mean, I'm just talking about an ordinary police officer. I think this guy was a lieutenant, must have been. So loads of really interesting conversations to be had with Uber drivers. And I encourage you, if you ever find yourself in an Uber, not to just sit there on your phone like a boring asshole, but actually talk to them. Give me a second. I should blow my nose. I'm still dealing with the remnants of this cold. It's lots of fun. This is what you come for. You come here for the bodily noises, right? We got Ben coming in a moment or two. Pitleng says this show is like a government department. Nothing ever starts in time. You know what, Pitleng? You have the option every single day to just leave. I am way past actually putting in any kind of fight to keep people here who are not meant to be here anymore. There's no Leanne. We're not going to have Leanne on Fridays anymore. What we're going to do on Fridays is I'm going to start off with a little bit of an issue every Friday, but this is the first one, so I wanted to just test the waters first. And then Ben joins around 6:20, and then we've got Jason Goliath today, so it's going to be a nice action-packed full show. But Leanne is going to be Mondays, Tuesdays will be Lebang, Wednesdays will be Simpiwe and usually a guest host. Thursdays will be Pumi, and Fridays will be Ben. So we've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot of really cool guests, co-hosts, all the rest of it. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Nico says that cold was caused by the tequila last Friday. So I actually met Nico. He was he works at one of the game farms at the place that I went to last week. Very good to meet you. You know what? I always love to meet people who listen to the show because they first of all, they never look or sound like you expect them to. And he's been a listener for some time. But no, it wasn't the tequila. I could promise you, Nico, I'm completely immune to that shit. It would have been the cold weather and the fact that I wasn't wearing a jacket, which is stupid. Parallel Parking says, there is a strange breathing sound overlaying your voice, Gareth. That's not a breathing sound. That's my alter ego who lives in the room and sometimes involves themselves in the show. They're non-binary. Ariella says, first morning listening live in a while, been booked off with the Rona. Ugh, sorry about that. Jesse wants to know, is there going to be an Bulelo guest appearance? Well, I hope so. He did say that he's going to join us for a show. In fact, I think he's going over to Europe in June, the end of June sometime. It is June now. But before he goes, he said he'd make an appearance. Michael says, what? Thursdays and Fridays for me. Yes, Michael, we know you love Pumi, and we know you love Ben. We aim to please. What can I say? It'll be lots of fun. David says, come to Dubai. Sweat out that cold in minutes. You know, I wanted to ask this question, actually. Do you think that a cold or flu is helped by things like saunas or steam rooms? Because, at the gym, there's a sauna, obviously. I won't go near it if I'm sick. But I believe that there are reasons that you should. That's what somebody told me the other day. All right, Beth says, I drove through Ermelo last week and couldn't remember the name of Phil's dealership. My husband just started naming all the ones he saw, and finally we got to DeWitt Motors. Yes, it is DeWitt. That is the one that Phil works at and that Phil is part of. And I actually drove past them the other day too, on my way to this thing where I met Nico in KZN. Very, very good. On Instagram, you cannot use we as a pronoun in your bio. Well, you can't use we as a pronoun in your bio, and you shouldn't be able to use it in a sentence either because it's bad English. Have you considered who will hold the fort on Tuesdays when Lebang goes to have her little person? Yes. Well, We are kind of training Bakabantu in the background. So he's potentially someone, and I know people like him. So we'll see how he goes. Cheryl has some health advice. Just chew on raw ginger and then throw back with honey and lemon. It helps. All right, I'll do it, Cheryl. What the hell? Sunshine is what you need, says DK. Yeah, exactly. That's all of us need. That road from Ermelo to Pongola. Okay, so I drove that last Friday and then on Sunday on the way back. I'll tell you what, there are very few roads, either in cities or between them in South Africa, that I would recommend, because they're all awful. I mean, we're not even talking potholes, by the way. It's just it's corrugations the whole way through. You basically can't drive anywhere outside of Gauteng, Cape Town, or Durban. Frankly, at the moment, Durban, I'm sure, is even worse because of the floods, without having to encounter absolutely terrible roads. So there's just no way around that. So here's Kale. He says, nonce means child molester. That song by the Cunts is hilarious. Okay, I think you're referring to the Prince Andrew song, which is climbing the charts in the UK at the moment. There was a Lad Bible story about this, which we talked about on the show yesterday. By the way, speaking of things from the internet, just take a listen to this quickly. This is absolutely hilarious and was doing the rounds this week on social media. This is during the Senzo Miyiwa trial, all right? Listen to this from Advocate Tef.
Because I can put it to you that, yeah, you are doing your utmost best to be evasive and protect the whole what is the best way, Your Lordship? I want to say the fucked up situation.
Did you hear that? Your Lordship, the fucked up situation. That's now how we talk in a court of law in South Africa. Now, listen, I mean, on this show, we sometimes throw in some foul language. Sometimes it's appropriate because the best word is fuck or whatever else. But if that's the only word you can come up with for fucked up situation in a court of law, I'm just wondering if the judge would consider that contempt of court. I mean, you could see his face. He was not impressed. But the advocate clearly ran out of words. It's a weird thing because we've had this discussion so many times in the show. I mean, we had it with Lebang just the other day, where we were essentially talking about whether or not someone's use of a language indicates that there's, something lacking, perhaps education, perhaps an understanding of the language, or whether that's a direct kind of, follow on from being unintelligent. And obviously, if you're going to be an advocate, the use of language is a fairly important instrument in your arsenal. So you may well ask, if you don't necessarily have a good grip on the language, is being an advocate necessarily the best job for you? I mean, that's the only thing I would ask. There are lots of jobs where you don't need to be very proficient in English or in any other language, but you have to ask yourself, is being an advocate of the Supreme Court, an officer of the courts of South Africa, is that the best possible job for you? And I would say in this case, probably not. Okay, lots of comments comments that are coming in rather from people who have comments on the lineup. Paul says Bakabantu is great, would be great as a stand-in. Also, just realized you don't read Facebook comments. Oh, I do. Don't worry, Paul. I do. They're just not as regular, and they're not as many of them as on YouTube. So it's probably the best thing you could possibly do is to get us on YouTube. Gary has an idea. He says, here's an idea for your show. Maybe to have a small business owner on your show once a week to pump their business. Just an idea. Actually, Gary, that is part of what we do on Unbundled, which you may have heard Yaku, who's been on this show a couple of times, and he does his own show on a Tuesday morning. He actually does exactly that. So he gives advertising space, effectively, to small businesses. Steph says, why doesn't the GCS do an international tour visiting overseas listeners? What what are we the Rotary Club or something? Why would we do that, Steph? I don't see why I should come to foreign countries to see people like you. Why don't you come back here and see us? One of these is much easier than the other. I think you'll guess which one I'm talking about. All right. Paul says Bakabantu is great. Definitely a great idea for Tuesdays. Yeah, he's smart. I like him because he's got very, very well-formed opinions, and he's young. Early 20s. Smart guy. Stone Philosopher says, G, put Vicks or tea tree oil in a bucket with boiled water, put a cloth over your head, and breathe in the steam. It works like a charm. Facial sauna. If someone walked into a room and I was bent over a bucket with boiled water and Vicks or tea tree oil in it, and I had a cloth over my head, they would think I was making muti, They'd think I was doing something illegal, probably. All right, lots of people with plenty of home remedies here. DK says, Gareth, if you really want natural treatment, get some Weinreit. What the hell is Weinreit? And wormwood leaves. Amazing healer and super fast results. Weinreit fixed my son's Rona in 2 days. All right. Well, Nico did bring up that I was in northern KZN last week. It's a part of the country I've never been in before. And as I said, this is a year to explore. It's a year for me to do new things, to get out there a little bit. And I will tell you, like, the most beautiful countryside. We were at a private game lodge called Bayala, which is near Pinda, for those people who are geographically literate. The coast is within visual range if you're up on high ground. So on the Friday night, we went up for a game drive, and they set up this whole beautiful area on the top of the mountain for drinks. And you can actually see, if you look eastward, you can see the sand dunes of Sodwana, which is magnificent. I mean, the view from up there is just absolutely breathtaking. And then if you look west, you look deep into the heart of Zululand, which is, an area that's so filled with history. They've reclaimed lots and lots of land there. So what has happened is that farmers who used to farm pineapple or bananas or whatever else, they've turned it into essentially game bush again. So they've pulled out all those plants. They've let nature take its course. They've let the bush grow back, and they have everything there. They've got the big five. So they've got lions, leopard. We saw buffalo. I didn't see leopard, but I did see lion. Buffalo. They've apparently got elephants, although I didn't see any. And you've got to be so careful in places like that, because elephant will destroy an area within minutes. They've got rhino, apparently. I didn't see any of those either. Black and white rhino. What's the other part of the big five? What am I leaving out? Lion, leopard, buffalo, rhino. They've also got cheetah, which is interesting. Not part of the big five, but a very cool thing to see. Gareth, your next stop should be the Karoo. The history is unbelievable. Start in Prince Albert. Yeah. So I've got friends, family friends who've been farming in the southern Free State, which is kind of on the border of the Karoo, for generations. And we often go there, which is magnificent. I mean, near Philippolis in the Free State, just a little bit north of, what's that place called? It's basically like a truck stop. Something of the sea. You might know what I'm talking about. Elephant's number 5. What did I leave out of the big 5? Lion, leopard, buffalo, elephant, rhino. That's it, right? That's the big 5. I remember you guys talking about humidifiers on a recent show. Did you manage to get one? Says Shaq's Life. Yes, I did. I put it on last night. I don't know whether it helps. And I've got to tell you, like, certain nights you just sleep better than others. And obviously this morning is not such a great... Colesberg. Thank you, Tracy. We are jumping around a little bit, but Colesberg in the Southern Free State, northern part of the sort of flat Klein Karoo area. Lots and lots of fun there. A beautiful part of the world, but oh my God, is that place cold during winter? Yo, you would not catch me dead in the Free State or the Karoo in winter. It's just absolutely abominable. Rebellious Ruth says Botswana is considering breaking with CITES and allowing poaching again in the news. I don't know if they're allowing poaching, but perhaps allowing hunting in places that they might not have before. That would be interesting. This is, again, one of those controversial areas, and I try not to get into these too many on too many occasions because it just gets people very riled up. Hunting is such an important part of conservation, and people tend to get very, very upset, especially the animal rights activists. I include my sister in all of this. If you talk about hunting, they think it's the opposite of preserving wildlife. But actually, without hunting, many of our game farms, many of our conservancies would not have made it over the last few years. And if there's any group of people who take animals seriously, it's hunters. So it's something to consider. It's not popular. People don't like to talk about it, but it's something to consider. Let us welcome Ben Karpinski. Hello, Ben.
Hi, Gareth. Good morning. I see you're talking about inconvenient truths again.
Yeah, like whether or not hunting is part of conservation. And, there's no doubt that hunting is a big part of conservation. People just don't like it. That's all.
Yeah, it is a bit unfortunate that you got to kill animals to keep animals alive. It does sound quite counterproductive, but that's how it's always been.
Well, especially if you cull elephants in a place where there are too many elephants, for example, because if you let the elephant population get too big, they absolutely break and destroy every single tree taller than your knee. So
yeah,
it's a reality, and people don't like to talk about. You mustn't kill anything. Let nature take its course. The fact is that without the commensurate number of predators, without an enormous range, these animals need to be managed. And it's become a very, very delicate science to manage them. We were talking last week about Wilbur Smith. I mean, you've been reading lots and lots of those things. Funnily enough, I met someone else over the weekend, last weekend, who's a big Wilbur Smith fan. So I think it's all pointing to the fact that I've got to read these books. Get on.
No, they're really good. The one I'm reading currently starts off with the 50 elephant cull, actually. Quite interesting. Wow. But, there used to be a lot more sort of culls, controlled culls in the Kruger National Park.
Really?
There's far too many elephants in the park, according to this game ranger that I was with last year. And unfortunately, what happens is that, as you say, they ruin the habitat for everyone else. And you remember not so long ago, I think it was Botswana, like 200 elephants just suddenly died. And Mother Nature has a way of also doing this if we don't have the ability to do it. So it is just, as Elton John always said, Gareth, the great conservationist himself, the circle of life. And we've got to appreciate it. We've got to be a part of it.
Thank God for Elton John.
Yeah. And may his wise words always ring through to every field on earth.
Okay, so I'll admit, yesterday afternoon, I watched a little bit of the Trooping the Color at the Queen's, what is it called? Platinum Jubilee.
Nice.
Yeah. I saw, it's all pomp and pageantry in England, but this is what people go there for. This is the reason England and Great Britain remains an interesting country, because they're certainly not a powerful force in the world. I mean, they've got the most ridiculous prime minister that ever lived. I love him because he's an eccentric Englishman, but really the English, their power in the world is spent. And they've got this queen who, when she became queen, she was queen of an empire all over the world. This vast collection of countries, some of whom had already become independent during her father's reign. But essentially, when she took over, she was probably one of the most powerful people in the world. Now, you can argue that she still has enormous influence, but direct political power, no. And then you watch a spectacle like yesterday, which, it's beautiful to watch. You see regiments dressed in clothes from probably the late 1800s, and you see them marching around, and you see them on horseback and doing things that we would never ever do in the military now because it's pointless, stupid,
Yeah.
and they'll be taken out like like arrow fodder. But it's beautiful to see. And then this tiny little woman comes out on a balcony. She's 96 years old, and she does a little wave, and the people go crazy. Like millions of people spread out across the Victoria Memorial in front of Buckingham Palace, up Pall Mall, under the trees. You know, people who probably haven't left their house for like 2.5 years come out to see this lady. You've got to admit there's something to it.
Always. I've been a massive fan of Lizzie from the beginning. And it's that kind of
Lizzie's good.
And it's that kind of pomp that we lack nowadays, because it's important not to see things in isolation all the time. People look at that and go, oh, what a waste of money, this colonial bitch, blah, blah, blah. And there'll be all of these stupid hot takes about Lizzie. But if you understand what it was all, I mean, we all know that the royal families are they're just a bunch of bullshit, basically. Someone grabbed power. I mean, you can go into like the more extreme cases here in Africa where there's like royal families. Come on, it's just people who were smarter and more diligent and more dubious than the rest. But Lizzie does have stronger, ultimately stronger, because they had the money to then hire the sort of hired guns, so to speak. But I think like Lizzie's still relevant. She's still really important. And through all the bad press and all these different sort of things, and yes, she doesn't have political power, so to speak, but she was instrumental in so many different things that happened in the world. Her diplomacy, her vision, her basic understanding of just right and wrong, I think, was always pretty good, and she was quite consistent. Not like she wanted this job. I mean, she was thinking about knitting and kittens like any other good woman back in the 30s was doing. And then suddenly she had to take over from her dad.
Correct.
So I think that there's so much credit this woman needs. And it always goes back to that great saying I heard recently, we discussed it already, is that people love to just try topple things over, try make them fall. But before you want to make something fall, understand why it rose in the first place. And like Lizzie went through the Second World War. I mean, she had to have tough conversations with Churchill. She's had all manner of people come in and out of that house of hers. Yeah, Buckingham Palace, and she's acquitted herself wonderfully throughout. So she's an absolute gem.
I've been fortunate enough to meet her a couple of times, and she is she's a very ordinary woman. She knows that she didn't become queen because she won a competition, or because she had the highest marks at school, or because she's the smartest, or she she has the quickest brain, or the greatest sense of humor, or the best looks, or whatever. She knows she's there because she was George VI's eldest daughter. And, this is the fun thing about monarchy. And we can see this even in, local versions of it, like the Zulu kingdom, where Misuzulu is the new king. I mean, he was probably enjoying his life as a student in the US. He probably didn't think about it. Suddenly, his dad dies and he has to come back and become king. Now, I know lots of people throw stones at things like the monarchy. As you rightly point out, Ben, they often don't know what to replace it with, but they just know it's got to go, which is a terrible attitude, because we can't destroy and dismantle things that have been there for generations if you don't have an idea of what you want to replace it with. Otherwise, you're just being destructive.
Well, if you look at a more extreme example, you just look at Libya. Sure, Gaddafi was bad, but what now?
Well, exactly. But I look at this old lady, and I see that she, she's performed her duties and her allotted task in life just so well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a job because you want to do that job, and you do a great job of it, people go, well done, that's terrific. If you have a job because no one else will do it, people also go, terrific. But if you just have a job thrust upon you, as she did, and it's a strange kind of job. I mean, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors and PR and waving and cutting ribbons and opening hospitals. I mean, a lot of it's very dreary work with a lot of awful, awful people I'm sure she wouldn't like to spend time with. But she does it beautifully. If you asked me to go and open hospitals, I'd be good at it for about 3 hospital visits, and then I'd really fucking hate it. And she does this, and she's been doing this for 70 years. Point to anybody in any job in the world who's done it for 70 years. I don't think there are a lot of people. So let her have a moment in the sun. But it is interesting what the royal family is costing the people of Britain. And they do complain about this from time to time. What's even more interesting is who they think is cool and who they think is not. So they did a poll. This is Statista, which the net favorability of selected British royal family members in 2021. So basically, they've ranked the British royal family and members of the British royal family according to how popular they are. All right. So the Queen is obviously the most popular by a long way and by a wide margin. She's 70% popular, according to them, in terms of net favorability. Next up is Prince William, who comes in at 61%. Then Catherine, who's Duchess of Cambridge, she's at 55%. Also,
that's his wife, right?
That's his wife. She used to be a gypsy, but then she
was gypsy. Yes, okay. Well, coming with Catherine, you could have just said the gypsy secondhand washing machine salesperson.
But I mean, really, she's fantastic compared to some of the people lower down the rung.
Well, she toes the line. She's assumed her role.
Correct, and she does a very good job of it too. She produced 3 very lovely little sprogs who had their first outing together in a carriage yesterday. There are 3 of them. I think there's George, Charlotte, and Louis, who's the youngest. So Louis's never been out in public before, and you could see why. Still very badly behaved, but cute kids, and they are the future of the monarchy, obviously, because they're the sons and daughters of the eldest son of the eldest son of the current monarch. So in the end, all these other people will disappear into insignificance. No one's going to remember most of these people, but they will remember those 3 kids in another 50 to 100 years when they end up in the position that the current Queen is in. So Prince William and Catherine, very, very popular. Princess Anne, very popular because she's a workhorse, if you'll pardon the pun.
I thought she was a horse. She's not an actual horse.
No.
I'm learning so much here from this, Charles.
Well, listen, there's lots to learn. Prince Edward, quite popular. Prince Charles, also.
Whoa, easy. Wait, hang on. Who's Prince Edward?
What?
Who's Prince Edward?
He's the.
Gareth, you must remember, not everyone is as knowledgeable or read as you.
So the Queen has 3 sons and a daughter.
Okay.
Eldest son is Charles. He'll inherit the throne.
Yes, know that one.
Anne, who's the only daughter, Princess Royal. Then there's Andrew, who's obviously the pedo. And then the youngest son is Edward. Edward, who married Sophie, and they've got 2 kids. And Edward has assumed a whole lot more responsibilities since Harry and Meghan fucked off to America.
Of course, yeah.
But going back to the chart, now we get to the least popular royals. So after Prince Charles, about half of his value is Camilla, who the Queen has said she would love to see as the next Queen consort. In other words, Charles's partner. I've always said she's the real fairy tale. People like Princess Diana, but to me, Camilla that's the real love story. If you really care about love, she was Prince Charles's fling, and he always had a thing
from the beginning.
And they love each other.
And just to note that when Lizzie does go, the national anthem won't be to Camilla. It'll be God Save the King. Yes,
correct. Absolutely spot on. So you get Camilla at the bottom of the populars, and then you get the unpopular one. So minus 13% you get Prince Harry. Minus 13% you get Meghan. Those 2 not very popular at all. And then minus 56% Prince Andrew.
See, being a pedo never pays. Hey? We've always said it on the show, Gareth. There we go. Another confirmation of that.
Yeah, not very popular. Not a good thing. So there we are. In case you were wondering which royals are popular and which ones will go on, that's the confirmed list. All right, so Ben introduced me to something this week which I didn't know about at all. Someone called the Liver King. I've never seen this guy in my life. He looks like a primitive man. I mean,
yeah.
I've never seen this human being before. But the Liver King is this guy. He only eats organ meat. He's some kind of alpha male, fitness fanatic. Tell me about him because I know nothing about this dude.
Well, yeah, he eats lots of liver, obviously, he eats a lot of organs, but he also eats a lot of high value protein, like a lot of steaks and all those kinds of things. But his whole take on this world is that we should live like our ancestors. And I get a lot of stick from people because I'm a fan of Liver King. And you get really smart people who always debunk what he says. And a lot of the stuff he does say is horse shit or liver shit, call it what you want. But, so I've made with this whole trying to prolong my own fitness journey, all these kind of strength things, which is hard. You need little hooks, you need certain things to keep you going. So I've created this extra account on Instagram, and every week I put like a mindset video out. Now, I would say mindset because I'm not skilled, I'm not qualified to tell people what to eat or how to train. So all for me is like, how do you get the right mindset to be like this guy? Jesus. Excellent. Look at him. Just screams excellence. He also screams.
Just describe this man to people who are not watching on YouTube, because a lot of people just listen to the podcast. All right. So the Liver King looks like he's got a huge, big beard. His skin is kind of strawberry colored. He looks like he shouts a lot. He obviously has very good circulation, Ben, but you see just veins. He wears a baseball cap and pretty much nothing else. I mean, he's usually half naked. And he eats the insides of animals. He doesn't eat the outsides of animals or the muscle that the rest of us eat. Or does he as well? I mean, he does. The reason he's called the Liver King is he eats lots of livers. Is that right?
Yeah, and he believes in organ meat, and he eats pancreas and testicle and all those kinds of things because he wants to be like their ancestors. So like I was saying, I made a video this week about why this guy is great. And of course, people now like take me on about it. It's like, yeah, but he talks a lot of shit. He's on steroids, which I don't really care about, because what he does is that he's the antithesis of Justin Trudeau. He is the opposite of a shitty politician who tells you to basically stay home and stay safe. This guy, like, he's got really actually good ideas. Fundamentally, he believes in not a lot of screen time. He believes in getting outside, the sunshine, lifting weights. Right. But because he's a character as a part of a company, it's called Ancestral Supplements, I think is his company, and they make millions, these guys. They're super smart. So he only got into social media like a year ago. He's already like 2 million followers on TikTok and Instagram. And yes, he uses social media completely to leverage this company. So I'm under no illusion that this guy is doing it because he wants people to be better. But there's also a certain part when you look past all the sort of extremes, you look past him like digging into a raw liver. Like, I don't believe in eating raw food. I think we're better than that as humans. I also don't believe in eating pancreas and spleen and these are very specific.
These are parts of you that do a specific function. They're there for cleaning out the system. I mean, especially in the case of the kidneys. I mean, a lot of people I know love eating liver and kidneys, right? They are available commercially pretty much everywhere. You go to a butcher, you can ask for liver and kidneys. But the liver is your body's filtration system. It puts things into the blood and it takes things out of the blood that you should and shouldn't have in there. And I don't know how doctors feel about this, but I'm not a big fan of liver. I don't like the taste of it. I don't know how to cook it. It's not something that I would think about. Certainly wouldn't eat it raw. Same goes for kidneys. They're a way to filter the blood and clean out the crap. The pancreas has a very particular function in respect of diabetes, which I don't know that eating that stuff is necessarily good for you. It's like, what's your next step? Brains? Tripe?
I mean, exactly. When I first got introduced to tripe, I just thought this was the stupidest thing you could do as a human, because when you cook it, you basically ruin a house. You have to burn the house down afterwards because it stinks so much. Yeah. And I know people eat, and this is the world over. People eat what they have access to. Okay, so they don't always have access to what it means to buy a nice ribeye, which I believe is the best thing to eat because I like it. So you eat what's around you. And now Liver King is basically saying, let's go back to ancestral eating. And my ancestors were probably eating cabbage. Let's be honest. I'm a Polak deep down. I'm not going back to their ancestral life. I don't think that they can even find a goat in like a good day. So a lot of it is like, it's like a fitness pomp and pageantry, and people will call him out on it. And I agree, there's a lot of horseshit that comes out of the guy's mouth. But there's, again, going back to the Queen thing, trying to look at things in isolation, try to look at it in the greater scheme of things. what we established during COVID is that people lie to us all the time, and then we have to now believe this and now just follow suit. Liver King lies, of course he does, because he wants to make money. Every single person, every single man on this earth wants to get paid and wants to get laid, and everything they do revolves around those things a lot of the time. And the more you get paid, the better chances of getting laid. So people are looking at him and going, "Oh, but he's so misleading." It's like, well, of course he is. He's trying to make money. But if you look at everything else, like crypto is actually horseshit, right? A lot of the time, it's so volatile. You don't know where it's going up or down. But I think it's still better than Biden pressing the money machine, right?
Yeah.
So everything in this world is tainted, it's jaded, and it's got a different sort of motive. Liver King believes in minimal screen time, lifting weights every single day, getting out into the sun, eating high protein. He's not a soy vegan telling you that an animal doesn't have to die for you to have a meal. You know, horse shit like that comes out of people's mouths and they regress as humans. This dude's like just living flat out. And he has the greatest setup in the world, Gareth. He's got this big house on a lake, and I think he's having a good time.
Ben, the less you rely on technology, on government, on other people, on shops, the happier and the likelier you are to survive long term. I'm not saying all of that's likely to fall apart, but I do think that there's a healthy balance. I mean, I just can't bring myself to. Have you started eating liver, for example? I mean,
Gareth, I've always eaten liver. I now eat mostly beef liver. I believe it's a good source of protein. Bone marrow, I've kind of believed in that, and there's some decent research around that from what I've gone through. You know, everything that I've done.
Not raw, though. You cook this stuff.
I don't do anything raw. The only thing raw I have is broccoli. That's the only thing that's controversial raw in my diet. No, I cook.
Cracks an egg raw into your mouth.
No, fuck no.
I mean, Jesus, I couldn't do that. I'd throw up.
No, I don't. Again, I don't think it's smart. You know, especially like unless you are literally killing the animal and taking the contents and eating it. You don't know where it's been. The listeriosis outbreak in this country was bad enough for me to always want to cook my meat.
Exactly.
No, I mean, I think what you must always do is you take little positives from everything. I think Liver King, just like everything else out there, just like a doctor who talks on TV, assess what they're saying, try to take the good out of it, but ultimately they're probably talking bullshit to you. And I still think Liver King's great. He's entertaining. He touches on some really strong subjects. But what I've learned from my personal fitness journey is that you should be able to stress test anything out there. I take it to the next level with my friends, and I always call like certain friends of mine subprimals because they're not eating raw pancreas. But that's a joke, and that's something that is really funny in the gym. Yeah, I mean, but this kind of badge is great because again, it goes back to the fact that men should be giving each other shit. And men should be just challenging stuff and just being raw and like that kind of stuff. And that's why I love Liver King. The guy's an absolute look. He looks like he's about to burst into flames, and he's probably. I mean, he's been doing this for about 20 years, according to his backstory. Okay, but again, like he's just. I just love the spirit of the dude. I really do. And people want to hate. People want to hate on him, but at the same time, these dickheads are queuing up for booster shots for the fucking vaccine. So
let's go from the sublime to the ridiculous. So this is a clip that's been doing the rounds again. I love this. It made me laugh all day yesterday. I know that Ben loves this too. We'll play it for you, and then we'll talk it through. So this is a clip from one of those doctor shows on TV. Right? There's this morbidly obese woman. And I think her mum. I think it's her mum, right? Or who knows?
Well, I don't know. She looks quite young. It actually could be like a disgruntled daughter or something. It's
who knows? Anyway,
there's so many questions here.
This enormously fat person and the doctor, and the doctor's trying to explain to the fat person why she's fat. And really, there's no mystery here. But for some reason, some people are confused. So you take a look, and then I'll talk you through it.
There's a simple math. You're eating too much, you're not going to lose weight. You're eating too much, you're not going to lose weight. Which part of this is very hard to understand that she's eating at least 4 times what she should be eating. So why are we overeating like we don't know what's going on?
But she didn't overeat. She's still eating.
You want to argue that with the scale? Don't argue with me.
But she didn't overeat. She couldn't overeat. I gave her proportioned meals, and it's the same as I've always given her. The only thing that we know that might have been different is she quit eating the vinaigrette and ate honey mustard dressing.
She eat a gallon of honey mustard?
Now, I don't know how much she put on her salad.
The 2 cups.
But I can tell you that's the only difference.
So she's gaining from thin air, right?
Well, I don't know how she done it.
There we go. All right, so this woman is enormous. I mean, she's got like 3 or 4 vaginas on her knees. She's so big. There's folds and flaps and things there that just they shouldn't be there. And the doctor's saying, well, what is she gaining weight from thin air? And the mom or sister or caretaker or nurse or whoever that other woman is says, oh, that must be it's got to be 2 cups of honey mustard, which we're giving her as a salad dressing instead of the vinaigrette. That's what she says. 2 cups.
I find it quite interesting to start because the doctor himself is no slender wonder, and he says it looks like you're eating 4 times as much as you should. 4 or like 44.
Anyway, they're all horrified. I mean, even the doctor's like, well, I don't know what we're going to do here. You need to eat less. And she's like, but I'm eating so little. Meanwhile, she takes up 3/4 of the room. And the other one is like, well, it's got to be the salad dressing because we've cut out all the other stuff. It's just amazing how. And then there's this moment where the very fat girl looks at the camera and she's got like this deer in the headlights look on her face, which is, for me, and I'm going to save this picture for the rest of my life, but it's like this, it can't possibly be my fault. Look, it's like, it's like when you catch her with her arm halfway into the fridge to grab like, what do they call it? Pork belly. And she's about to digest. You talk about raw meat. I think this girl could take in, I don't know, the liver, the heart, the pork belly, the whole fucking thing. She could probably swallow it in one breath. And she's got this look in her face like, no, it can't be me. It must be the world. It must be someone else. It must be, the system. There's something in the system that is doing this to me. It can't possibly be me. That's what she looks like she's saying.
But you know what you said there, like she's grabbing an entire pig out of the fridge. If she were to eat the entire pig, she probably wouldn't look like that. What she's eating there is like soy and fucking cereal, and she's eating like a child, basically, on huge quantities. Again, goes back to Liver King. He's eating animal, and like all these incredibly obese people, Gareth, if they were eating like what you think is going to make them fat, they'd probably be fine. This is the thing. Like if they were eating animal products, it'd be great. But they're not. They're eating pizza. They're eating doughy things. They're eating things with seed oils and all kinds of other shit, which is messing them up hormonally. Yeah, it's. No.
So every time anyone won't take personal responsibility for things, I'm just going to put this picture on the screen. That's all. The moment, whether it's in the burning platform or when we have a guest or anybody, and they just can't take responsibility for anything and they try and blame the world, I'm just going to put that picture. It's like, no, it can't be me.
It's a look of shock and horror, but that size doesn't happen overnight. Although obviously things get hammed up for TV, but she looks surprised. You can't be surprised when, like, that's years and years of just treating your body like a toilet.
Absolutely. 100%. Okay, so Ben, Amber Heard's net worth has been published post the trial. I don't know if you want to talk about Amber Heard at all. We've got like 3 minutes left of this, but she's now minus 8 million because she was probably around 15. If she'd just taken the money from Johnny's settlement and run instead of having written that horrible op-ed, she'd be better off now. She's now worth minus 8 million, according to the latest statistics. And not to miss a moment to pile on China, when Ben is on the show, I saw you shared this on social media. The countries that are polluting the ocean the most. So all the environmentalists, I hope you're taking note, because a lot of people complain about America or about South Africa or about any other country in the civilized world, when the country that is by far the biggest polluter, it is double its next nearest competitor for ruining the oceans with plastic. China, 3.53 million tons of bullshit goes in, mismanaged plastic waste. 8.8 million tons of plastic marine debris. It is a disgrace what China is doing to the oceans. The next worst offender after China, which is probably half of them, even less than half, is Indonesia, then the Philippines, then Vietnam, and then Sri Lanka. And none of the other countries are close.
So I'm not going to try to be devil's advocate here, but there's other countries on the list. That's just Australians going to their beaches and putting shit in the oceans like beer cans and bottles. So they almost get a free pass in my mind. But China is just it's just dreadful what they are doing and will keep on doing, and they get away with it every single time, and they still haven't paid for anything, any of it, Gareth. And it's just it's wrong. And I hate the fact that the moment you say that, it's like that Jabba the Hutt who just showed on the screen. People will say, "Oh, you can't be so horrible to her." It's like she's killing herself, and the people who care for her are killing her too. We got to call that on. China's killing the world. They're trying to. They are just. It's just dreadful what they do, what their government does. I'm sure the people are quite nice. Well, probably not. But more needs to be said about this. We people are so happy to give lip service to Greenpeace and all these other great things like, oh, they're cleaning up the ocean. It's so great. Yeah, okay, well, can we go to the source and maybe use that goodwill energy to turn it onto like, fuck you energy, the people who are causing it? People never go to the source in anything. It's just too inconvenient. It's too difficult.
You know what? I think you're spot on. I mean, China must pay. They've still got to pay for coronavirus, which they haven't done. But,
long overdue.
Unfortunately, we've got to leave this for a moment. It's 7:00. When we come back, we've got Jason Goliath joining us. I'm very excited to have him back on the show. Loads of things to talk to him about. Stick around. CliffCentral.com. Friday morning. I hope your day is off to
Hooray!
Hooray!
So excited it's Friday.
Up next in the Autotrader podcast. I think let's talk about what goes into getting finance on a car.
Yeah.
I think the first thing is your credit rating.
Yeah.
Right. You can not have a great credit score if you don't have debt. Okay. So people think that debt is a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if managed properly. Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
Some people want to forget all about the 80s. Some people would prefer not to remember the hairstyles, the movies, the fashion, those pants we used to wear. God, those pants we used to wear. Some people would prefer to never hear an 80s song ever again. We are not those people. That 80s show. Music, movies, obscure references, and so many unchecked factoids. Fridays, 9 a.m. on Cliff Central. People say we're stuck in the 80s. Like it's a bad thing.
Alrighty, it is Friday morning. It's well into June already, and there are things happening. We've got a very, very special guest coming to join us in just a moment. He is someone who's well known to everybody in South Africa, and comes from a very talented family, actually. Jason Goliath is a comedian, an actor, presenter, an MC, a facilitator, famously known for his huge energy and his larger-than-life personality. It's always good to see him, and we welcome him this morning. We also got Ben Karpinski with us this morning. It's going to be a busy Friday, so lots to talk about. Jason Goliath, how lucky to see you, dude. How are you?
Listen, I'm excellent. This is I'm not used to this time of the day anymore, Gareth. I don't know how you do this thing. Just wake up in a good mood before 8 o'clock. It's a struggle. Then also, I open my eyes to thin people discussing fat people. Let's immediately have a bloody meeting. It's experiential appropriation. Ben, you've never been fat a bloody day in your life. Calling people Jabba the Hutt.
No, wait.
In the meantime, you look like a no-name brand Tintin. You must never, Ben.
You know what?
I've been holding on to this. I've been holding on to this through your whole conversation. I've got points. Let me make my points, then I'll give it back to you. You can do your show. Number one. The next time you guys discuss fat people and hold pictures on screen, you better have a fat person on the screen representing other fat people, because there's two types of fat people. Gareth, you said you don't want people on your show. Take that thing away from my face. Gareth, you said you don't want people that come and deny. Oh, I got fat by mistake. So I make jokes on stage all the time about I'm tired of 10 people looking at me in the mall like I don't know. I'm tired of 10 people looking at me like I found out this morning, like I jumped out of bed on some, I feel so bloated. No, we know we are fat. We are very well aware we are fat. Every time we try to move, we are fat. Every time we sit down, we're fat. We stand up, we're fat. We lie down, we roll over in the bed, we are still fat. So for me, I'm fat because I love food, okay? I love food more than I love Gareth Cliff's opinion. I can't explain it in a better way than that, okay? Number one, Gareth Cliff got nothing to do with my debit orders. Number two, Gareth Cliff look like he can't even cook. I don't care what Gareth Cliff's opinion when it comes to my body shape. But there are also people, Gareth, that you must understand. Fatness is a side effect of mental wellness. Fatness is a side effect of not being loved. Fatness is a side effect of having a small house and your fridge is too close to your bed. Fatness can have many reasons. You can't just blanket all of us like, yeah, you're irresponsible, Jabba the Hutt, you're eating yourself to death, treating your body like a dustbin. It's bloody not even 8 o'clock and I'm having these conversations. No, guys. Guys, you started me off on the wrong note.
Jesus, that was a tirade. That's what that was.
Yes, but it was the truth. It was the truth. Ben, you complaining about fat people is exactly the same as you complaining about menstruation pains. You know nothing about these things. You are not even in that WhatsApp group. Do you
know what a cat is?
Well, I mean, big cat, small cat.
Okay, no, but you know what a cat is. But you don't have to be a cat to know what a cat is. So
yeah, but you have to be a cat to understand what a cat feels, Gareth.
No, you don't. Nobody cares.
Yes, you do. Look at that. Look at that puss next to the sow. Look at this. Even the cat came to say, don't speak on my name. You don't know my struggle.
No, hold on. I don't have to be fat to understand what it's like to be a fat person. And I'll tell you something. I did look at a picture of myself about 10 years ago, and I saw I was becoming a fat slob, and I thought I'm going to fix that, which is more than a lot of these fat fuckers are prepared to do. I have no sympathy. Dude, Jason, I hear you. First of all, you are not fat. The kind of people we're talking about are like, that woman that I keep putting on the screen, because her thigh is as fat as your whole head. So I mean, I'm not gonna pretend like it doesn't annoy me when I see somebody that can't leave the house because it doesn't matter whether they go sideways or normal ways, they can't fit through the door. I get annoyed as well when I see those people act shocked. What do you mean I'm eating 4 times as much? I'm like, ma'am, you have 2 chickens in 1 pan. You know what I mean? I've seen those videos. So I understand the frustration, but I am going to ask on behalf of sensitive people everywhere that just, you have your opinion, but don't express it with such Jabba the Hutt, fat bastards. Yeah. I mean, the language is unnecessary. Listen,
Jason, is this your first time on the show?
It is not, which is why I'm very vocal. My wife left. My wife was watching. When she saw me, she was just like, oh my God, why are you screaming at the people in the morning? So my wife left. She went to listen in another room.
I want to talk about what you're up to, because we haven't spoken to you and caught up with you for a very long time. I mean, first of all, being a comedian during lockdown was shit because you couldn't do your thing. And there were lots of people who were trying to do it online. But I mean, if you don't have the audience in front of you, that's hell, right? That was really awful for many people.
If you don't have the audience in front of you, it's not even stand-up. It's a different genre of comedy. So what I first learned is to stop expecting it to be stand-up, because it's not stand-up. It was like a different genre under the comedy umbrella. Yeah.
But you've also become, you are now the voice of Comedy Central Africa. Congratulations on that. I mean, that's really cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
How did that work? How did that all happen?
You know, I've got to be honest. I think it was just patience. Because, I mean, I remember Comedy Central and I have this weird relationship, because I've been doing comedy for about the same amount of time that Comedy Central has been in the country. And I remember David Kibuka as the first voice. And I remember thinking, oh, my God, this is, you know, in terms of branding, I just go like, Comedy Central, just even the logo, even if you've never watched the channel, you know that logo is like a stamp of authority for good comedy. Like, it's become like, you know, globally recognized as if these people back you up, you are cool. And when I heard David Kibuka's voice, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so cool. And what's even cooler is he was doing it in a style that no other channels were kind of allowing, exploring creativity and being crazy. And then, you know, as a channel and talent, they've been, you know, kind of, I suppose, strategic partners in a way, and have really looked after me and taken care of me through my career, giving me so many experiences. Like, you know, my first time at JFL, which used to be the biggest comedy festival in the world, like Mecca for comedy. Comedy Central took me out my first time, and we've just been really, really close. And I think when the opportunity came, they thought about me.
When you comedians talk about JFL, you're talking about Just for Laughs, which is in
Just
Canada.
For Laughs.
Right? That's
Just for Laughs in Montreal, Canada. Look, like I always articulated that as a festival, it's so important to comedians that when comedians write jokes, we all face our books towards the mecca of comedy, which is JFL. I can't explain it in a less PC way than that. So, you know, we did.
Look at Ben's cat is listening very intently to everything you're saying. Check.
Yeah, Ben's cat is waiting for him to switch off his camera so it can exert its revenge on him talking things. It's just waiking for the camera to be off. The cat is patient.
She fat shames way more than I do.
Ben, you clearly don't understand the language of pussy, Ben. I'm not going to say any more than that. You're making up things. I'm just saying, Ben. That's not your first language, not your mother's tongue. That thing.
I think Jason is saying you have no game, Ben. I think that's what he's saying.
Well, I mean, I don't mind, because after No Name Brand Tintin, I mean, there's no real comeback from me on that side. So he can have his moments.
No, it's because Jabba. When you said Jabba, you hurt us all a little bit. All of us, just a little bit. But even us entry-level fat people, you hurt us.
I want to change the subject ever so slightly. It's something I've admired about you, you know, because I used to be friends with Dan Nickel, and then I wasn't famous enough, so we haven't seen him in a long time. But he always chose you.
I took your place there. Sorry.
The other week there was actually a big celebration of your 200th appearance on the show. Congrats on that, by the way.
It was Dan's 200th episode, but I love your articulation. Well played.
No, but something I've always enjoyed about you is that, like a lot of comedians, they make no money, right? So you have to do the corporate stuff. You have to toe the line. You have to do all those kind of things. Yeah, but you somehow are funny in that stuff, and you're still funny. And it's like what you've done since the Castle Lager days. That's when you first sort of like shot to fame. And you know, I'm not here to blow smoke up anyone's ass. I just, you know, I don't ever see you because I don't play golf anymore either. And I've just got to say, after all these years, like, you are still funny. It's hard. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people just like they stop funnying.
You know, firstly, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Secondly, I think I'm very, very comfortable with who I am. And I think what helps me be funny in all those situations is that like at corporate, I'm just funny without swear words. On stage, I'm just adding swear words, which is like having the curry with aromat, you know what I mean? Adding some flavor. But funny, I think one of the scariest things that especially comedians and artists don't speak about is, you know, that light going out. Because we've seen it in other artists. We were fans of an artist that had a kind of confidence wobble and just couldn't pull it back up. And I think it sits in our minds. And the pandemic, you know, made it even exaggerated it even more, because generally we take kind of 3 weeks off, when clubs are closed, December, January, every year, and we come back after those 3 weeks rusty, and then we had 2 weeks off, 2 years off, and we all thought that the rust is going to overwhelm us like an old Datsun from Durban, you know what I mean? And the fact that we can still do it, so I'm confident that it's a confidence game. And I always say to comedians that the first person who's got to believe that you're funny is yourself, because you've got to believe in your funny. Because if you don't believe in your funny, the second the audience stops laughing, you'll go that direction with them. Whereas in my mind, when the audience stops laughing, I always go, no, I'll give you guys time to think. I know I'm funny. If you haven't laughed, it means the message is still maybe seeing itself to you. You know what I mean? It's on its way.
But we all know. I mean, listen. I think what Ben is also, kind of mentioning on the side or in the margins here, and it's something that you've been really good at. There are very few people who get it right in terms of longevity. It's like some people just don't know when time is up. Like, for example, I did a TV show for 11 seasons, and I could tell by season 8 that I needed to get out, because you don't want to be the one who's switching off the lights or have people say, "Oh my God, not that guy again." And
absolutely.
In South Africa, there's so many people in the entertainment business, they don't realize they've passed their sell-by date. They've been doing the same thing for like 15, 20, 30 years, and nobody cares anymore. Nobody's interested anymore. They haven't reinvented themselves. They're not doing anything new. And you look at them and you think, that's a bit sad. And in comedy, it's so stark because, they're these grumpy old guys. And I'm not going to mention names because a lot of these people who deserve our respect because they've been around a long time, right? And they're like an old bull elephants who knock over shit in the Kruger Park. But some of these people they're not funny in their real lives, and they're not even that funny when they get on stage anymore. They just moan. And
yes.
I don't know that those guys, anyone's actually had the balls to go up to them and say, "Hey, listen, dude, you used to be the funniest guy in the whole country. People love you. But if you stop now, people will remember you for the good times." If you carry on, as a grumpy old bastard.
Yes, put your bat in the air. You know what I mean? Put your bat in the air. Vi off, not out. You know what I mean? Put your bat in the air. Let the audience cheer. Yes. They know you got 1 or 2 more sixes. You come to the next match. I'll show you those sixes. But for now, I think I've done enough damage here. Let me just. But it's so interesting that you say that, because I think the rules should be the same, kind of all the way through. And for me, I'm always shouting at comedians, going, "Stop listening to comedians." Number one. So I go, only listen to two people, to those that paid to see you play and those that are paying you to play. So you worry about the opinion of the audience, and you worry about the opinion of the person that is arranging the event and that booked you. Everybody else's opinion doesn't matter. So I always say to comedians, why do you care what a comic thinks about your set when the audience is literally their only job is to tell you if you're doing well or not? So for me, I think that what happens is people get so caught up in this world. And, David Kibuka was my great mentor, and I'm weird that I'm bringing him up again. But he said something so interesting to me. He said, listen, this life is going to get so exciting, and there's going to be so many interesting things that many artists forget what they sell. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, you get so caught up in the hype and the media and, everybody knows you and people think you're funny that you forget that what you sell at the end of the day is actually jokes. And for me, you always got to have the jokes. And number two, the second the audience is not laughing, if you're not listening to that, you've lost already. So I watch a guy that's been doing it for 20 years go on stage, bomb, and then come off and go, this is a cuck audience. You know what I mean? That guy stopped listening. He's disengaged. His sense of reality around the craft is a little bit dim.
You're lucky in some ways, because being in comedy, you guys get immediate feedback. Like some other businesses, and let's just step out of the entertainment business for a while, because we all know that there are CEOs who've been in that job for too long. There are people who've been, there are people who've been hanging on by their fingernails to a job or to a business that they should have left a long time ago, because they're no longer the best person to run it. Every business has a lifespan as well. You might be the founder of something, you might be the person who starts something, but ultimately, as your business grows, you have to bring in people who are better at running it, not starting it, but running it than you are. And I think all of us realize at some point, like, you are not always going to be the best person to do what you're currently doing.
Absolutely not.
And it's nice in comedy that you guys get the immediate feedback. And it's also lekker for us because we can be honest with comedians. How many people are honest with, when Coca-Cola bring out like vanilla Coke or whatever other shit products they've come up with in the last couple of years.
That thing was delicious. Yo, that amount of sugar plus vanilla. What a glorious concoction. Yes, I couldn't drink that thing with my eyes open. When you sip it, you have to close your... Hey! Damn it. It's like the opening strains of diabetes. That's the first, just to twist it and then to... Yeah, man. Lakker.
But you know what I mean? Like, some people just don't get the hint. Nobody's making it clear to them or clear enough to them that your time is up. Find something new to do. We all can, we can go and do interesting and exciting new things. I mean, for me, this year is all about kind of exploring new stuff and trying new things and getting into places I've never got into before. But the media business seems to have a lot of dinosaurs in it. Really.
Aren't you secretly grateful for those people?
No.
Like no, so for me, sometimes I'm secretly grateful because I'm like, sometimes the audience needs a barometer to see just how good I am. You know what I mean? Sometimes they need to see how hard this thing is, the flip side of the coin. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm always like, when I see an unmotivated person, I'm like, no, it's fine. You be unmotivated. I don't need more competition. You know what I mean? Let's keep the fast lane open. Just move to the left and let us come through. So I'm just like, I'm in a space where I think what I've realized is I can't control people. I can't control what people think. So I need to let what people think affect me less. So when I see a guy on stage that's past his time and nobody can tell him, I'm just like, yo, I'm not going to tell him, but I'm going to let him know. Like there's a famous story within the comedians about Jamie Foxx years ago. And the story is Jamie Foxx goes on stage and he's been doing the thing for years at the time and he's very, very famous. And it's in one of these kind of, Apollo rooms where it's just rough and rowdy. And Jamie goes on and essentially gets booed off. He bombs so bad that, the audience turns on him and gets booed off and he comes off and he's like, cuck audience, etc. And as he's walking out the backstage door, literally he hears the whole building vibrating with laughter and it is heaving. Turns back, goes back in stage, and a young Chris Tucker, who's an open spot at the time and unknown, is destroying the house. And in that moment, Jamie Foxx always speaks about how he then realized it's never the audience's fault. It's always the comedian's fault. Yep. And comedy's always going to be the boss. So comedy's not like music where I believe you can be the absolute master and you never play a bad note. With comedy, even if you Dave Chappelle, you can have a bad set and bomb. That's just the way new great content is created. You've got to test it, trial it, and the only way to do it is to die in front of an audience who can't wait to tell you that was cuck. But that point of Jamie Foxx sits in my head for a long time. Is never think you're bigger than the game, and never stop listening to the audience. Never stop. They'll tell you.
You guys speak about the whole like reinventing yourself and rejuvenating yourself. COVID was the rusty time period, but I mean, social media has given comedians a whole different way of marketing and obviously trying what they can do. Do you find like that's something that you've enjoyed more, or do you feel like there's a lot of pressure because now you've got different platforms to be funny? Do you feel like there's more pressure for you to always be on those things, or do you see it more like something that can help you build?
Look, I'm 41, so social media pressure is something that I wish I could say, listen, I feel no pressure about social media, but I think the pressure I do feel is that it's like sometimes it's a new language. Like I look at these new TikTok comedians, and I go, how could you post that video? There's a dirty sock in the back of the room. Because I come from a time, no, for real, I come from a time where if you have many takes, you see the sock, you remove the sock, you take it, right. You do the take again. But that's not what's trending. So I find myself feeling like a bully because I'm looking at some of this content with 1 million views, a sock in the back of the room, and I go, I don't understand what's so exciting about this. So number one, I feel like I'm a little bit too old to understand it. Number two, other than comedians like Donovan Goliath, for example, who, it was expressed that he found his freedom in captivity because the lockdown forced him to go back to his roots of creativity, and he got so engaged online. And I didn't feel any pressure because I'm not that guy.
Someone sent me a clip of Donovan just the other day because we do this thing called Collectomania. It's this very funny clip where he's basically joking about how he's collected 40,000
the bullies bags. Yeah.
Bags, which it's brilliant. Now, I'm not on TikTok, but my God, there's room there for people to come up with creative ideas. And I've met some of these like TikTok stars. First of all, I don't know who they are when I meet them, which is probably 100%. Better. But they some of them are killing it. They're doing extraordinary stuff.
Amazing.
People love them, and a few of them, I have to say, are very unimpressive in person. Like you'd walk past them, in the shops, and you'd think, I hope I hope that guy's okay. I hope he makes it through the day. Looks like he's having a fucking terrible time.
So look, let me jump in here. What I love is, so firstly, I think that we all live in the space of fear that everybody's out to take what's ours, and I don't think that this is the case with these new, let's call them digital comedians, because that's exactly what they are, because their content is funny. So for me,
new worlds, new piece of pie.
There's enough for everybody. You must just kind of understand the lane that you're competing in. So I listened to Loyiso Gola do an interview. And he articulated it best, so I'll just repeat his articulation. He said, look, like for comedians, a TikTok comedian has a dedicated following. Those people follow them because of initial interest in their content, and they already believe that they're funny. They have 20 takes, so it's easy for them to keep their audience, who've already identified that they're funny and they kind of like that brand, entertained. A stand-up comedian can walk into a room where nobody's seen or heard of them before and make that room laugh, which is what a digital or a TikTok comedian can't do. So they can't just walk into a room, meet somebody for the first time live, and without the opportunity of a second take, engage with the room and make them laugh. And I think that what's exciting for me is it's opened up this whole new kind of genre. And I think the industry before was preaching about gatekeepers, and I think all industries of the arts are, you have to be with so-and-so label to be seen, and the best of us are not being showcased. And at the moment, this thing here is it's your agent, it's your television platform, it's your channel, it's your equipment. And if you have one of these, you can show anybody how good your skills are. So like, I was doing a gig in PE a couple of months ago, and like 4 young ladies came up to me and said, yes, man, we have a band. Do you have any advice for us? We got quite a crowd of like 74 people at our last event. And I was like, guys, that's excellent. They were like, what advice do you have? I said, give your music away for free. They were like, what do you mean? I said, put your music on the internet for free, give away as much of it as possible, build an audience online, then you can translate that into bucks, because it's not 1980 what where you've got to deliver the cassettes and hope for the best.
Correct.
I was just like, give it away. Let people hear, build your audience.
There's nobody stopping you right now. If you are an entertainer, whatever, you could do comedy, you could do music, you could be one of those people who puts together little documentaries, you could be someone who teaches people things. There is no excuse anymore. You don't need anyone on your side to be able to be successul. If
you just need to be good. That's it.
Absolutely. But you've also got to deliver. Like, this is where, and Ben, we've spoken about this a million times. It's like a lot of people have good ideas. In fact, ideas, you could find them under, if you just kick a bush properly, a whole bunch of ideas will fall out of it that the last 3 people left there. But it's doing
as they say, Gareth, ideas are like arseholes. Ideas are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
Yeah. And unlike arseholes, many people have more than one. I mean, if you had more than one arsehole, that would be a major, major problem. But you'd basically leak shit like a sieve. But the fact
are they both together? Is like one on your back?
I don't know.
I'm just trying to orientate. Like, how do these?
Anyone with more than one arsehole?
No, because is it like those exhaust pipes that are together, or is it like GTI where they on the opposite? Yeah.
Listen, if you had to have a second arsehole, I think it'd be better for them to be closer together.
It'd be pretty funny. It'd be pretty funny, like, because like with a car, you get to a certain amount of horsepower, you need more exhaust. What if you get to a certain kilogram weightage? Suddenly it's like, whoop, second arsehole popped up there.
You see, I'm now worried about. No, because like if you've ever been in a public platform and you've got a controller pupol each, like you can't show. Now imagine 2 pupols are itching at the same time. Oh my goodness, that's how you'll have a stroke, I'm telling you.
Oh my God. That's outrageous. The fact is, it would be a lot worse if you had arseholes opening up along your spine. Imagine if you had one at the bottom, and then before you knew, there was one in the middle of your spine, and then you had one on each shoulder blade. Oh no, hell no, that would be horrible.
No, like a jacuzzi with the ports all over your body, but the brown fountains. My goodness.
Who's that laughing in the
back? Someone's laughing in the back.
That's my wife upstairs. That's making me feel good about my jokes.
Brown footballs.
We've definitely found we found her niche.
That's funny because in slang, kakas, we call it R. You know what I mean? That's our slang. That's like the you want to see a colored girl gag, you just say, did you slut the girl? That's how you call it, And then I'm saying you would be a human spa because you'd be a jacuzzi and you'd be a spa. You know what I mean? Would you like a mud bath, darling? You know what I mean?
Oh, that's disgusting.
Let's move on. Let's move on quickly.
So the point was, the whole reason we brought up arseholes, thanks very much, Ben, is because a lot of people have ideas, but they don't do anything with it. I mean, what I love about you is that you've always got shit done. I mean, I know that, didn't you have a whole bunch of money stolen from you recently?
Mm-hmm. We do. So yeah, it's like 4 years ago now, and 4 years ago we had just over 250,000 rand hacked by some hackers. Was
that out of your bank?
That is out of our bank. So what happened is they hacked our emails, but on like the master level. So it didn't matter if we changed passwords. And then all they would do is intercept. So we would send out an invoice. They would block that email, change banking details on our invoice, and forward the invoice to client, and then harass client from us going, have you paid? 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 And it took us like 7 days to figure it out. And by the time we'd figured it out, many clients had paid money to the wrong account. We'd paid to the wrong account as well because they did that too. So I remember Lockenville, we'd booked Lockenville for a thing, and the Lockenville were like, guys, we haven't received the money, just before they're going on stage. And we're like, what do you mean? We paid you 2 days ago. Now you must pay people again because you can't be having this conversation now. It was rough. But it is what it is. So for me, I'm just like, it is what it is. It's not a defeatist thing. I'm just like, we've stopped pretending that the world isn't the way the world is. So you can't stop every time you get robbed or something bad happens to you. You just got to keep it moving. And we've kind of had that attitude as a business, and I've had that attitude in my career that I love this thing so much that I only want to do versions of comedy, whether it be acting, radio, movies, whatever it is I do. I want to have that feeling of does it make me feel good? And I think that's such a nice privilege to have worked for, is that I don't have to do things that don't kind of, make me happy, or that I wouldn't do for free anymore. I've got like, it's this weird realization that I think to be able to make your money while having as much fun as I have makes me luckier than a lottery winner. Like, I'm the luckiest person I know.
You sound like you're over it, and I don't want to traumatize you again by making you tell the story, but dude, to have 250,000 rand stolen from you, this is really, that's got to be one of the most, I would have been so angry for so long. I'm impressed with how you just breezed past.
Look, no, I'm okay now, but I can't live there. At the time, if I found those people, I had a very clear plan. I was going to be sneaky. I was going to find out, because scammers, generally, they have families. That's why they turn to crime. They want to feed people. Yeah. Then all I was going to do, I was going to go and fetch their children, leave their children with my mother, because she's a great babysitter. And then after about 4.5 days, I was just going to deliver a shoebox with sheep kidneys inside saying, be careful who you steal from. And say nothing else. Just, you know what I mean? That's the level of anger. When you start having dark movie-like thoughts. That was the level of thoughts. It's like, I will take these people's children, leave them with my mother, so they're having an even better time, eating brand name food for the first time in their life. It's nice. It's nice. The kids are safe. And then to the parents, however, shoebox outside the door, lacquer with a bow. It must look like it comes from online shopping. It must look nice. There must be an experience. You're opening up this newspaper. Then all of a sudden, 2 sheep kidneys just going, you've robbed the wrong people. You've robbed the wrong people. I wish I could add my face and tone to the... No, it made me very, very angry. And then you realize that, we are so ignorant. They are like formal operations, call centers. People get dressed in a shirt and a belt and a shoe to go and steal from you every single day. So we just got to have our wits about us. And I think the biggest lesson for me is it could have been more. And although that thing hurt us and almost finished us, it didn't. But it did make us wise. It did make us bolster internet security, think twice about clicking on links, makes us just, because people want to take your bucks and they don't care. Wow.
Yeah. Somehow, I mean, it was much more fun when we were talking about having multiple assholes, but it's a real thing. Hey, we talk about it often on the show, and people get ripped off. And every day. And you know how many people have lost like everything? And the bank's not going to give you your money back. That doesn't happen.
Well, I know the process. I know the process now. So the bank is very, very simple. The bank will only investigate firstly if you initiated a transaction. So if you transferred the money, then they'll help you. But so I went to the banks going, listen, my clients have transferred money into this account, thinking it was my account because these people were posing as me. Then they said, your clients have to go to the police and report, and then your clients have to come to us and report, and then we will initiate an investigation. So at in the moment, you just want to burn down the whole thing because you're like, why are you not protecting me and my money? You can obviously see what has happened. Why are you not even willing to investigate? Then you hear things like, the banks in South Africa, each of them get at least, they're getting 1 million attempts a day globally to hack them. So they are dealing with so much. And then, I feel very important and special because it's my money. But to them, it's a list of people. It's heavy.
Maybe in the whole scheme of things, 250,000 Rand, which is a lot of money to any of us. Don't get me wrong. But yes, maybe in the big scheme of things, that's nothing because there's probably billions being stolen every day. Who knows?
Exactly. And you don't. I mean, it sounds like I'm definitely not on their side, and I think that those processes need to change. And I think that a lot of them are kind of working towards it. But I think the bottom line is don't underestimate how smart thieves are. Like I read an article the other day. Or my wife told me because she reads articles and then tells me. But it simply said that, listen, we are idiots and underestimate how smart criminals are. Because, for example, you get a mail from a scammer and you are laughing at the how do you call it, the articulation, the English. You're laughing at the grammar. There's the word. You're laughing at the grammar. Then the article said that grammar is intentional because if you are foolish enough to think that it's a serious email, despite the grammar, you are their target audience. So it's criminals sifting through, because they don't want smart guys like you guys who are going to expose them. You're not their target audience. So what they're doing is they're clearing you out the way and getting to their target audience, because if you miss the grammar as an indicator of something's wrong here, then you are more likely to fall for the next step and the next step and the next step. So now we think we're clever because we're like, look at this guy, can't even English, and he thinks he's going to fool me. No, he has fooled you because he's made sure, because you're the guy that's going to catch him, report him, and get him into trouble. So he doesn't want you. He wants the Dombra that is so desperate for the bucks. They rely on greed and feed on all of those things. And for me, that is just such a fascinating thought to go, I live in a bubble. I think I'm clever. In the meantime, there's no more clever people than criminals.
Dude, that's spot on. I didn't even think about that grammar thing, but it makes so much sense. I mean, that's how you filter out the target audience that you want. It's brilliant.
100%.
So listen, one other thing. I mean, I'm trying to kind of keep the conversation in the bounds of what I wanted to talk about. We could let it go anywhere you want now, but I did want to congratulate you. It's been 10 years of Goliath and Goliath, eh?
Guy, 10 years of Goliath and Goliath Pty Limited.
That's amazing.
We can't believe it.
That's phenomenal.
It flew by. It was the quickest and the best 10 years of all our lives. So for those quickly that don't know, Goliath and Goliath is made up of 4 people. There's my sister Kate, who's our MD, and she's our boss and manager. And
she's the brains from. I mean, listen,
100%.
She's we've interviewed her once against her will when you guys came in. When you just started Goliath and Goliath, we had, and nobody was interested in what you assholes had to say, but Kate, she had
always. She's the funniest and the smartest. She really is.
Thank God for her. Your family would be on the streets.
Thank God for me, because I enabled. She was one of those old engines. I had to start like this, so because it was a two-ply. There's a two-ply situation. Our family, right, but anyway. So Kate's our MD. Kate, who we poached from. She was a public relations officer at Prime Media Broadcasting when we poached her. And we're like, Donovan and I had this idea to say, hey, let's go in. And of course, there's Nicholas Goliath, who's our cousin. And Nicholas Goliath and I started comedy on the same day. And Nick is kind of just, Nick was a sleeping giant, like unbelievable at comedy, but I can't wait to announce when he's ready what he's about to do next. And he's just found a new creative lane. I think this pandemic did the same for him as for Donovan. And we'll probably be announcing in the next 2 months, I think, what Nicholas's greenlit project is. Donovan came from Network BBDO, which was a big agency, and it just meant now we had all of these people coming together. Donovan not related at all. That's why it's Goliath, the family name for Kate, Nick, and I, and Goliath Donovan. And 10 years later, we've been doing our favorite things. We've I think, influenced a generation of comedy. We've influenced, and so when you like look back, it's like I'm just like, it's so crazy. I sent Donovan a screen grab of somebody's social media the other day, and it was a completely different comedy brand, but the design language was so similar to ours. And I was like, guy, I hope you realize that in some way we've influenced the design language even of stand-up comedy. Never mind just the way things run, the professionalism, but what a gift, man.
You even created famously venues for other comedians. You've given a lot of other people a head start. You've helped a lot of young comics out. I mean, this is seriously been a massive contribution to comedy.
This is why we're so excited. So what we're doing to celebrate 10 years is on the 29th of July at the Lyric Theatre, we're doing a show called 30 in 5, 10-year celebration. So we're getting 30 of our favorite comedians. Now, these are comedians that either preceded us in the industry and helped us grow. These are comedians that came up with us at the same time, and comedians that we helped come up. So it's like all the headliners. We're getting 30 headliners to do 5 minutes each. No host. It's just rock and roll comedy, DJ on stage. Buzzer, if you're dying at 3 minutes, the room will turn red and you'll be buzzed off stage.
Wow.
So it's just going to be this like massive celebration of comedy. And I also think that because of what we've all been through, it's going to be the dipstick test, where you'll be able to, in real time, see what the quality of South African stand-up is. And let me tell you, it's unbelievable.
I just want to say, it's very nice of you to include really talented people like Pop Pops and Joey Razdin and Lichlim Simang, Tatsin Konzo. And it's even nicer of you to give Nina Hasty a job. I mean, she's really been on the skids for a while, and it's nice.
Your jokes are fine. Either way, we're doing it all for our original ticket price. So we started a gig called Our Wednesday before we started Goliath and Goliath. We started this gig called Our Wednesday, which became like a cult thing. It was just great. And that running that gig made us feel like there's something more. And that's how we started Goliath and Goliath. And our first ticket price was $50. So we're doing it for $50. 30 comedians for $50 just to celebrate, because it's a party. It's a party.
Even the people who live near Gold Reef City can finally afford something in Gold Reef City.
Look, no, those people are still going to ask for comps, my friend. Even at 50 rand, Gold Reef City people, they're going to tell you, I mean, 2 liters of petrol. I can never. At
the moment, even if you come from just around the corner from the Lyric Theatre, it's going to cost you because petrol's so fucking expensive. So EP47 wants to know, does anybody, I mean, it's lucky that you're on the show this morning, know where Jason Goliath was raised? Where are you from? You want to know.
So I'll give you like the long truth, which I never give anybody. I normally just give you the summarized version. So I was born in what's now Tambo Memorial, was then Boksburg General Hospital. That's why I'm so robust. In 1980, back in the olden days. And then my folks lived in Nigel until I was 2. From Nigel to El Dorado Park until I was a teenager. From El Dorado Park, we went to Maritzburg, Florida.
Hold on.
It was like a
Nigel, what the hell?
Nigel, my friend.
What did they do in Nigel? Nigel's like a mining. No, but it's like a mining town, isn't it? It's a horrible place.
You know what it was is back then housing for people of color was a struggle. So very often you stayed where somebody from your town had moved. And would tell you, listen, there's free houses, put your name on the list. Not free houses, but available houses, put your name on the list. And it's fascinating for me to go back to that time, because if I look at like my dad is many brothers, and they all live in different parts of the country for that reason, because one of their friends said there's a house available. So like, family arcs of opportunity were changed based on house availability in the 80s because of the Group Areas Act. You know what I mean? It was like crazy stuff. So my folks lived in Nigel because that was where the opportunity to move from Durban, from where they were both born, and out of their parents' home. That was where their first opportunity was. Next opportunity, Nick's dad moves into El Dorado Park and says to my dad, "Lo, there's some houses in El Dorado Park, which is much closer to where we all have to work, etc." And then Nigel to El Dorado Park when I was about 2. And then Aldo's was, I think, my main formative years. Growing up in El Dorado Park with an alcoholic father will make you strong, my friend. Let me tell you, it will make you streetwise.
I'm so pleased that you explained that Nigel thing, because this just, again, proves, people always think, government, it doesn't really affect you as much as it used to. And that's probably true. And it's a good thing. Let me tell you something. People had to put up with unbelievable shit just because some idiot politician decided they were going to do some social engineering and send colored people wherever they wanted to send them. Isn't it insane And you think about that today. If someone told you, Jason Goliath, they said, you've got to move here because that's where colored people are allowed. You'd give them the middle.
No, but worse than that, they went, you can't buy this house. We're giving you a 99-year lease. So you couldn't buy the property. We're giving you a 99-year lease, which means you pay the government in perpetuity and you will never own the property. You will never own the property. So then people would be clever and make profit by selling the contract. You know what I mean? So I sell you the 99-year lease. I make a 10 grand profit for deposit on my next contract. What's even scarier, and I think that what is hard to talk about now is like apartheid was a genius system. As much as we hate it, it was clever, that thing. It was very, very clever. It was very well thought out, and it was incredibly executed. And then we don't speak about the fact that it's like a financial crisis. So when we go through an economic meltdown, the man on the street only feels it in his pocket 2 years after they've declared the recession over. Right. So apartheid now, 25 years or whatever it is down the line, I go into the hood and I see the results of apartheid. Because what we don't speak about is apartheid made everybody live together. Then when everybody was living together, there was all types of colored people. So I go Eldorado Park. Every house in Eldorado Park had every street in Eldorado Park had one big house with a swimming pool and a BMW. Because there was always one bully that was doing well, found a company that was, helping him be educated out of the country. And those bullies were our mentors and our role models. Then I go and do a talk with Brand South Africa in the colored area outside of PE. And my heart was broken, bro. We do this talk about work hard, tell her whatever you want, your dreams are possible, and just put it in and you'll get it out. Lighty comes up to me after the show. And by this time, we've done about 6 regions. So I'm like, confident in the talk. Lighty comes up after me the show and he's like, bro, I don't want to be funny, but that thing that you said doesn't graph for us. It doesn't work for us. And I'm like, what do you mean? He said, my man, you said work hard and you'll be fine. My father's the hardest working man I know. He works 2 jobs and we are broke. The drug dealer on the corner has a swimming pool and a BMW and doesn't work hard. Why would I work as hard as my father to be broke? So then when the Group Areas Act ended, all of those houses with swimming pools, those people moved to the suburbs. They moved to the suburbs and got out. So all of the role models within those communities were almost extracted. Now the big house, the BMW, the swimming pool, those are drug dealers. So how are these kids going to aspire to get out when their role models are doing the wrong thing? So it's like so many years later, something that apartheid caused is now the blister is starting to burst.
And that's where I get so worried about what we're doing right now, because we obviously can't change the past. But right now, there are politicians and there are supposedly responsible people in society who are not making things better. And you think about how kids are growing up in like fatherless households and what the effect of that is going to be in another 25 years' time. We've got big shit on the way. And I don't want to depress anybody on a Friday morning.
But people need to be aware. Also, don't be caught surprised. There's big cuck.
Yeah. I mean, when Jason's talking about like what happened, 30, 40 years ago, where they would tell you which houses and which suburbs you could live in, and they'd tell you what kind of a contract you might have and who you could marry. I mean, do you remember?
Yeah.
This is the most insane thing. When people hear about apartheid, they always think about like Group Areas Act, or they think about Blancas and Nie Blancas on this bench or whatever. But the worst part of it was this thing called what was that act called? The marriage, not the marriages. The
Morality Act.
Morality Act. That's the one.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing where. And I mean, it's so ridiculous. Like, colored people in South Africa have a very special belonging, which you could argue nobody else has, because they were made, manufactured, raised in South Africa like nobody else, right? Argue about white people and black people from other parts of the whatever. But the idea that they would tell you that you couldn't marry someone you fell in love with because Favut decided you were from a different group, a different race. I mean, it's insane. You think about this now. And this is in living memory, dude. There are people alive today who couldn't marry the person they loved.
No, I mean, Trevor writes a book about porn crime. You know what I mean? It's such a disgusting premise. But again, I've made peace with the fact that that system was genius. Whoever implemented that system understood divide and conquer better than anybody else. It was such a genius system that even though we've been professing freedom for so many years, the system still has a terrible hold.
Long tail.
And he's made worse by the fact, I remember, I'll tell you an interesting, anecdote. I remember remember the time when the ANC was voting for Zuma out Ramaphosa in, right? I remember being in an Uber, and Uber drivers are my favorite people to ask questions because they have the most interesting answers in the world, right?
Started the show this morning talking about one, yeah. Go ahead.
Are we? So I asked this bruh, so I'm like, hey dog, who you voting for? He's like, hey man, this thing is very interesting. So I'm like, what do you mean? He says, on the one hand, you've got somebody who will steal like an African, and the other hand, you've got somebody who will steal like a European. So I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, no, this Uber driver believes that Zuma will steal like an African, Ramaphosa will steal like a European. So I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, don't be foolish. A politician, no matter his color, no matter his country, steals. Bottom line. But when a European politician steals, he thinks about tomorrow. So I'm like, what do you mean? He says, no, if he's promising you a bridge, tomorrow there'll be a bridge, but he steals something from the top. You won't even see it. He just steals something from the top. Exactly. But when Africa steals, it will steal the whole bridge. There'll be no bridge even. There will be no thought for tomorrow. And when he said it, when you don't want to agree with someone, like I want to fundamentally put up my hand and go, hey, but take it easy. But then I just went, firstly, let's not fool ourselves as South Africans that we have the only corrupt government in the world. Secondly, don't think the color of your skin means you do crime and other colors of skin don't do crime. If you're a politician, your skin color and your place of birth doesn't matter. Chances are you're going to steal.
If you want to get Ben started on that, you're going down the right road.
I can see him. No, I can see the veins.
I'm enjoying you articulated it.
He loves a politician. All right, so listen, we've got to wrap this up. Unfortunately, I mean, you've been on with us for like 45 minutes, but it feels like it's been 2 minutes.
It's been so much fun.
I really would like to have you back, and we've got lots to talk about. But don't forget, they're doing the Goliath and Goliath Turns 10 comedy show, which is happening at the Lyric at Gold Reef City. They've got amazing comics doing 5 minutes each. Tickets are only 50 Rand. Get them at webtickets.co.za. Jason, it's lovely to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Listen, it's great to see you. I want to say big shout out to my friends at Comedy Central. Thank you for making me the voice, and thank you for allowing me to express myself on your channel and just try to continue the funny. Gareth, thank you for all you do for us, bro. We see you. You are an example of a fighter. That is never ever gonna lay down. You are an inspiration as always. And Abut Ben, salute, bro. Nice to see you, dog. I'll tell Dan you said how's it.
Jason, very good.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Ben is officially the biggest fan of the Liver King this morning. So lots of
that's such a secondary story compared to that guy. That dude, I just love that energy. Like he'll come into a room and you see him in different places, and he will just be funny. But like he made such a great point there about like one thing about being a digital comedian, another thing going into a cold room where you got to actually be a comedian, and that's why that guy will be successful forever. Ever.
All right, Ben, I'm going to talk to Borge, so I'm going to let you go and start your day as well. Ben has got lots of
long Friday, but a good one.
Businesses to run, and I'm very excited to have George Mienie join us. So, Ben, I'll see you on Friday next week.
All right, Gareth. Love you seeing you this morning. Ciao.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers. We got a whole new format taking place from June, and I explained that at the beginning of the show, so I'm not going to go over it again. But I'm delighted to welcome our star appearance for the morning, and he always is the reason that you know your weekend is about to start. George Mienie from Autotrader, and don't forget that Autotrader have their own show, which you've got to listen to, the Autotrader podcast on a Monday. Good morning, George. How are you?
Morning, Gareth. Finding you. I missed the beginning of that. The whole new format. That sounds very interesting.
Well, you got to keep changing things, right? We've got to keep making things different and better, and figuring out what people really want, and throwing some lines into the dam and seeing which fish bite.
Exactly. Now I'm missing Ben and Rianne, and I saw you had Jason Goliath on. I spent probably 7 or 8 hours inside my iPace with Jason a couple of months back.
Oh wow! Oh yeah.
Because we did the EV road test, and Jason was my partner in the car.
He's brilliant.
And he's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He had me in stitches for, I mean, we did probably about 4 hours in one day, 4 hours the second day in the car with him. And he had me in stitches the entire time.
Amazing. What a good guy. All right, George, we've got lots to talk about this morning, so let's not waste any time. What is on your agenda?
Well, now and again, people modify cars, and I bring those to you. Remember the boat that was a car, and then the guy actually made one that could drive.
It was properly amphibious.
Yes, properly amphibious car. So somebody a while ago has modified a VW microbus. Remember these?
Yes, absolutely.
Modified a VW microbus. This is an all-terrain type Fox microbus. That's what they've coined the name. And it disappeared for many, many years because this thing rolled off the showroom floor. A guy got his hands on it. He modified it, turned it into this thing, and then it disappeared. And then VW Commercial found it and they refurbished it. If you look at the bus from the side, that's what it looks like.
So cool. So it's actually got those tracks that a tank has.
Yes, it got the tracks that a tank has, exactly. And the inside looks a bit like that. It's a little bit of a lumberjack in interior.
That's a shitty interior, I've got to say, yes. George. They could definitely do some work on the interior. But I like the fact that you could have an all-terrain minibus. That's cool.
Yes. Very cool, very cool. And I don't. The general cars that get modified on the road today, I mean, they're a little bit boring. I mean, because people modify them to make loud exhaust sounds or whatever. But these kinds of modifications are quite interesting.
Listen, I like the amphibious ones. I like these all-terrain ones. The only ones I have a problem with are the ones that say they can fly and they can't. Those ones are a waste of time.
They need to really be able to fly. Yeah, they need to do what they say.
I'm waiting for that Sky car, and so far it's all been very disappointing, George.
Exactly. And then secondly, Gareth, I don't know if you are aware, I think you are, Tesla can emit fart sounds from outside the car.
Yes. In fact, George, I don't know a lot about cars, but this little fact I did know because someone passed it on to me. You know, we're always on top of fart information. Why would you want your car to fart?
Well, what people are using it for in America is to sneak up, because, EVs are really quiet. So they use it to sneak up to pedestrians and then push the fart button as loud as they possibly can and give people a hell of a fright. There are lots of videos. It's almost like the fart sounds out of a Tesla have become like cat videos on YouTube.
Okay, I like that.
So, So the party pooper, for excuse the pun, the party pooper is the US government, because they have just banned the fart noise and Tesla's had to recall the software.
Again, trust government to ruin the only funny thing that a car manufacturer has done in the last 20 years. Nice job, government. Take all the fun out of everything. God, they suck the life out of everything, don't they?
I mean, if you watch some of these videos, you should go and Google, fart noises out of a Tesla on pedestrians. It's funny when people get a fright. I mean, the reasoning the government has, which I think is not great, it's stupid actually, is the fart noises are funny until someone gets hurt. That was their reasoning.
Please, who's going to get hurt by a fart noise? What is that any more or less alarming than the hooter? Do you know how many times I've been sitting in a restaurant on the side of the road, or when you're walking down the road yourself as a pedestrian, and someone will hoot, and you get a bit of a fright. That's as frightening as a fart noise. At least would be hilarious.
Yeah, I agree. I think a fart noise should stay, and if they, obviously they're not banned from the rest of the world because it's just America that's done this. But fart noises need to stay. And then biofueled cars. So, biofuel is turned into hydrogen, which then effectively powers a hydrogen-fueled car. And they've done a test that has proven that a biofueled car, it's called biomethanol. I mean, you're into chemicals. I'm not as profoundly wise on biomethanol as what you might be, Gareth, but they've used biomethanol, which effectively comes from cow poop, in a hydrogen vehicle. And this car has traveled 2,000 kilometers on a single tank.
That's incredible. And you're getting this out of cow shit.
Out of cow shit, yes, exactly.
George, the future is bright. We can not only find ways of using less energy and making the earth a healthier place, but we can also take some of the things that are making the earth a less healthy place and turn them into fuel. I am all for it. One day, imagine the day, oh, happy day, when we will shovel a spade full of cow shit into our car and it'll turn into kilometers of smiles. Ah, the happiness of the future. It makes me so excited about what's next.
Well, Gareth, what's next is this particular peacock. again in England this time, south coast of England, was reported to be damaging vehicles by knocking its head and beak against the car's bodywork, and particularly if it could get up to the window. So what it would do is it would knock its head and its beak against the reflection of the car, and then jump into the car. This peacock has been called Conor McGregor peacock. Because it's relentless and apparently scares a lot of people. And the reason this peacock is doing this is because it sees its reflection and thinks it's a mate.
Oh, shit. Okay.
And then attacks the car. So shame, poor peacock. But apparently this thing has been terrorizing everybody.
They are very, very stupid animals, as I understand it. So they're very beautiful, particularly the male of the species, because they have those beautiful big tails, and they try to impress the females by being as colorful, and they do a dance, and it's a whole like display thing. But the peacock is not well known for being a very intelligent animal. Obviously, if it sees its reflection, it's going to think it's another peacock. Dumb as can be.
And that's it, Gareth, ending with the peacock story.
Well, George, I am sure that you will be flying or driving or riding some kind of fancy automobile or plane or helicopter or God knows what this weekend. So I'm sure that you'll lead the way for the rest of us in terms of some new transportation method. And we will see you in a week's time.
See you next week.
Lekker stuff, George. Nice to see you. And thanks, everybody. Have an excellent Friday and a good weekend. We will catch up Monday morning, bright and early, 6 a.m. Make sure you're there. We'll be live and ready to go with lots of cool stuff. Have an awesome weekend. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.